Welcome to Wellbeing Budget and Buy-in. If you have never been to a wellbeing event by CWH before, a very warm welcome to you. My name is Carly Phillips. I am a wellbeing keynote speaker. I'm a lead researcher for federal and state government in the wellbeing space. I'm a nutritionist and a mental health first aider. I'd like to kick off today's session by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, really from wherever you are dialing in from today. Today I'm dialing in from the land of the Bunurong and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I acknowledge anyone on the call with lived experience, or you may be caring for those with mental ill health as well. Just going to let a few more people in. Good morning. Welcome to the session. So what we're going to be doing today is we have an interactive online event, which means you can interact with me and others on the call, which is always of super high value to our participants. And you can do that using the chat box. You can also do that using live polls, which I am going to kick off with today. And I'm going to finish with Q&A at the end of the day. So end of the day, end of the event, I should say. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat and I'm happy to answer them as we go through, or I'll do them right at the end. So what I'm going to cover in this session on wellbeing budget and buy-in is secrets from the boardroom. I have some intel I'm very excited to share with you. And that is when I was sitting on the board full of finance directors, and I had an opportunity to really deep dive into wellbeing budgets and why they invest and why they don't invest. And I'm really happy to share that with you today. I'm going to do how to pitch your business case, how to present your ROI, VOI, and legal obligations. And I'm going to show you the evidence that motivates every leader. And what I mean by that is every leader will have a different purpose and a different personal motivation. So some will be driven by the people side of things and the value on investment. Others will be data driven and looking at just the return on investment. Some will be risk averse and looking at legal obligations. So I want to show you all the different levers you can pull depending on which type of leader you need to try and influence for wellbeing, budget and investment and commitment and buy-in. So I want to start today's session with 3 questions. Can I just ask you to grab your phone? Please scan the code that you can see on the screen. Question number 1, let's kick off. How is your well-being today? Let's have a look and see. So you can enter a word up the top. You don't need to enter 3, just 1 is fine. Click the blue submit button and it will come up on the screen. The reason I'm starting with this today is because this is how I actually start every single wellbeing session, whether I'm coming in with a mental health topic, a psych safety topic, a nutrition topic. I think it's really nice to gauge the feeling in the room. It also gives attendees and peers in the workplace a chance to, I guess, acknowledge how other people are in their workplace. So we know we're not all in the same place, right? We've got some people thriving and we've got some really, really struggling. So can I just ask everyone to scan the code on the screen, just enter 1 word and hit the blue submit button. If you can't do that on your phone, you can see there's also login up the top at menti.com. So you can use that if you want to open another web browser. I'm going to go into the next question. So this is a nice one just to have a practice of. We've got great, positive, and stressed so far. So even with this sample size, you can see there's a mixture of different responses and 1 good. Thank you. Question number 2. Describe your well-being budget for 2025. So there are 3 options. You either don't have one, you have one that is too small to make a difference. I'll just check that this is working perfectly. Or the third option is that it's pretty healthy. So pretty healthy would mean it's big enough to actually make an impact and for you to build your wellbeing program. So we've got 3 people saying pretty healthy. That's fantastic. I love that. One saying we don't have one. So what we're going to learn today is how we actually get to that point. Yeah, and we've got one saying too small to make a difference. So I've had companies like that come to me and say, I have got the tiniest well-being budget. Can you please help me? So sometimes companies come to me with a budget and it might be $1,000 to start off with. And so what I'm trying to create with a tiny, tiny budget is something that is of value to employees. So I definitely want to give them tools. But the most important thing, if you've only got a tiny budget, is to collect feedback and data so that you can take that back to your finance directors and back to your board and really pitch a bit of a business case for well-being. So it's tricky, but it's absolutely doable. And my third question for this morning is, how do you secure your wellbeing budget? Do you wait to be given one? Do you juggle from other buckets? So, in other words, find the budget and steal some out of another department, which I see happen all the time? Or do you pitch for it with a business case? In other words, do you say, this is how much money I need for wellbeing this year, and I've got a business case that's pretty strong that I want to show you how to do that? Now, 2 people have said yes, they pitch for it, which is fantastic. I'm going to do a review on how to do that. So don't worry if you haven't. One person said they juggle from other buckets. I see this a lot internally. There are actually rebates you should get from your insurer that give you money for well-being. And sometimes I see that money juggle and shift around. So go and find out if you've got that rebate coming to your organization. Or sometimes you have a bucket of money that sits under L&D, or it might sit within HR, and that money can go towards well-being and other things. And you kind of need to juggle that budget. If you are one of the 2 companies that have said you're waiting to be given one, it's the normal way that you do it. I would say to you that is very common, and that is the number one mistake that I see happen when companies ring me and say, I don't have a budget. My first question is, have you pitched? Have you asked for one? And almost 100% of the time they say, no, I'm actually just waiting. Now, you know what happens when you sit back and you wait? You get zero typically. That's always the answer that I see. So I really want to encourage you, and I'm hoping that's one of the reasons why you might have joined today. I really want to encourage you to have the tools and the skills to be able to pitch with a business case. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So thank you for answering the 3 questions to get us kick started. Let's dive into secrets from the boardroom. So here is the situation that I found myself in. Didn't expect to be there, but I'm very, very glad I was. I was sitting in a boardroom and I had 12 financial directors, so one from a different company right across Victoria. This was a meeting held in Melbourne. And I did a talk about well-being, and we had lots of conversations about their people and things going on about well-being in their workplaces. But I also took an opportunity to show financial directors what the legal obligations were, what the return on investment was, and what the value on investment was. And I sat down with this group of 12 directors, mixed genders, mixed races, mixed experiences, actually a variety of industries even. So it's a really, really good sample size of decision makers. And I asked them this question. I said, out of all of these metrics and these data points you can see on the screen right now, which of these would convince you to invest in well-being for your people? Jump into the chat, have a guess. What do you think they said? So I gave them all of this data you can see on the screen. I said, which of these things are really the biggest influences for you? Which of these would make you invest in well-being? What do you think financial directors were really convinced by? Jump into the chat and let me know. A couple of guesses. What do you think their answers might have been? Let's have a look and see. Do you think it was something under legal obs? Yeah, ROI, Vicky. That was my guess as well. I thought it would be all dollars. Nathan says the same, ROI. Okay, so let me have a look and show you what they said. All the value on investment stuff, they said that would not convince me. Do you know why? Because it's too hard to measure. So finance directors, obviously they're data-driven people. They want everything in a spreadsheet. They want it to be measurable. They want it to be something they can really show the ROI on and value on investment. When we're talking about performance, productivity, positivity, morale, it's really hard to measure. It's subjective, right? And so it can be measured within HR and within leaders. You can do focus groups, you can do interviews, but the mindset of a financial director was, no, that's too hard. So the value on investment was definitely not on there. Tracy's guessing physical and mentally safe workplaces. Yes, so Tracy, you're bang on. They said legal obligations was the number one strongest reason why they would invest. So they're naturally risk averse. That's their job, right? To keep the organization and the finances safe. So what has happened with the new legal obligations is, as you know, Safe Work Australia have got new regs. We have to eliminate and minimise psychosocial risks. And the second one on there is we have to create a physically and mentally safe workplace. That's the law, right? And the legal obligations were absolutely front of mind. So I thought, right, I'm going to share this information on our webinars. I'm going to tell all the wellbeing leads who come to me and say, I don't have a wellbeing budget, go in with legal obligations. That would be number one. The other one, which really surprised me that came up, was retention. And when I asked them why, they said two things. They said retention is their biggest pain point. So it's the biggest problem they have in workplaces right now is people just walking out the door. And I'll show you some stats on that. So we know employee expectation has now shifted. We know wellbeing is an expectation, and if they're not getting that, they do walk out the door. The other reason they said retention rates is because they said it's really easy to measure. We can measure it at a point in time today and in a week and in a month, and we can really make an improvement in retention rates. So I wanted to share this with you to show you when you are pitching for a business case, the two things you must put on there are legal obligations and increased retention rates, which of course also is an increased ROI. It's part of that big bucket, right? So this is a really, really good place to start. Now, how do we then pitch our business case? So I want to show you an actual formula on how to do this. So if you were to present to your board, maybe just to your manager or to your director, or maybe directly to your finance people, there is an order of three. It's a bit of a formula that I've tested and I know works really well in just about every industry. Step one, you want to present unique employee needs. So you want to show them what your employees' biggest risks are and what their needs are. So don't go to them with an anecdote or a feeling or your opinion. Go in with the data immediately. Step two, present your customized wellbeing program to meet these needs. So you could put together a 6-month or a 12-month program and say, we have designed this and customized it to meet the needs from the data. So that's a really strong way to kind of write your strategic plan. And step three, you want to present your budget that is required and you want to put the ROI in the business case. So put the dollars in, make sure you include increased retention rates because we know that was a really important factor. Make sure you include the legal obligations. You could almost do this in a one pager, and I'm going to show you an example of a case of that in a minute, but it has to go in this order, and I'll tell you why. When I was in that boardroom, I showed them this business case and I said to them, if I presented to you my unique employee needs, so our workforce's data, and I customized a program to meet those needs, would you invest if we had the ROI, VOI, and the legal obligations? And they said, 100% we would. So they said, if you do it in that order, that's a very, very strong business case. And I said, are you currently doing that? And about half of the directors said, no, we're not. Why? I said, why are you not doing that? And they said to me, nobody pitches in that order. They pitch the wrong way. So what they do is see that red arrow, they go in and they say, oh, I'm waiting for a budget. Or they go in and say, how much money can I have this year? Or they'll go in and say, can I have $10,000 or whatever nominal amount you're asking for? And in the mind of a financial director, they're saying, well, what's the evidence? What are you going to create with that? And what are the outcomes for our employees? So if you're doing it backwards, there's way too many unknowns and it's very, very high risk for anyone to throw money at something when they don't really know what the outcome's for. So you've already got everything you need. You've just got to do it in this order. Needs first, then the program, then the budget and the ROI. Are there any questions at this point that you want to jump into the chat? While you are popping those in, I'm just going to show you an example of what this actually looks like. So when you go and present your ROI, your VOI, and your legal obligations, this is an example business case of what it could look like with the ROI actually calculated out. So here's a couple of metrics. These are our employee health risks. So I've just put a few examples. You probably want to put more than this up in your business case. Here's a few examples of mental health. So in this example, 13% of employees were really struggling. 17% said they did not have one person in their life they could talk to about mental health. So straight away, that identifies a risk both for the individual employees and for the business. Sleep average was at 6 hours, so we know that increases the risk of accidents and injury at work, and fatigue management could be a big problem there. And we know people are drinking less than half the amount of water they should and way more soft drink or energy drinks than they should. So that's really poor for concentration and really poor for sleep. So these could be some risks that you would put into your business case. Then you would present your customized wellbeing program. Do it as specifically as you can. Just pop a bit of flexibility in there. So if you need to keep it dynamic and move it around throughout the year, that you can. But the more detail you can present in your business case, the much more convincing and the much less risk it feels like to actually put the dollars forward. So put forward your program and say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to launch it. These are the topics we want to put forward. Put a bit of a timeline in place. Show them how these resources actually meet the risks. So if you said sleep was at 6 hours, we want to introduce sleep training as an online interactive event, and we want to supplement with e-learning and an action plan. So it's a really solid response to the risk that you've identified. And then the all-important wellbeing budget. So make it very specific. The investment required until 30th of June 2025 is X dollars, and then required until 31st of December is X dollars. The legal obligations are, and you might want to list all of them or just one or two. The return on investment is, now we know it's $2.30 as an absolute minimum. So you can multiply the budget you've required up the top, that X number, by 2.3. So you could say, I'm asking for $10,000 until the 30th of June. The return on investment will be $23,000. Pretty compelling, right? It's a lovely, lovely way to actually show it in real numbers. You can put the VOI in there as well and just include the references. So all the references are on my website, and I build all these business cases for companies that come and do our audits. So I can show you how to do all of that offline if you need to. Now, this is the actual business case. I want to show you the steps in the second half of this event on how to get to that wellbeing program piece. So let me move over to show you the two pieces of evidence that motivates every leader. Don't forget to pop your questions in the chat if you've got any so far about your business case or how to develop that. Happy to answer those. Now, remember we said the two things that were the most compelling were retention rates and legal obligations. So I just want to show you the retention rate piece. We know workforce in Australia, we've got about 23% engaged, 67% quiet quitting, so already disengaged, 11% loud quitting, in other words, walking out the door. 43% actively seeking work, and 81% saying now is a good time to find a job. So it's no wonder retention rate is the biggest pain point for financial directors and boards, right? Huge, huge numbers of people moving around the place, leaving work when they're not getting well looked after or well heard, well seen. So this is a really important factor to have a conversation with about your board. The other one was legal obligations. I'm not going to go into this today, but we do lots of webinars on this topic. Please refer to Safe Work Australia to make sure you know the psychosocial safety regulations. There are 4 steps involved in the legal obligations, and I've just popped some circles up on the screen just to show you how widespread the impact is and how much this needs to be an all organisation commitment. It does not just sit with work health and safety, which I feel like a lot of people initially thought it did. But even at the consultation phase, when you're identifying your hazards, it's still work health and safety and HR working together. And then you need to bring in L&D, and you need to have leadership commitment as you work your way around. So what that does is it shows us the retention rates and the legal obligations as the absolute strongest 2 pieces of evidence to make sure we can help to influence and convince any type of leader. Let me just do a quick checkpoint. We're at the halfway mark. Let me see how confidence levels are going. How confident are you to secure your wellbeing budget right now that you've seen that formula, you've seen the evidence? Do you think you could kind of put that together right now and see how it goes? Let's have a look and see what the numbers are. Just scan the code on the screen. Just pop in whatever your number is for your confidence levels right now in securing your wellbeing budget. I'll just give everyone a couple of seconds. Jump in and pop your number between 0 and 10. How are your confidence levels right now? We're sitting at an average of about 7.3. Okay, so we're getting there, right? So we've got the formula, we've got the evidence that we need. Let me jump in. You're a 7, Tracy. Thank you. Okay. What I have given you so far is the steps to secure your budget and to secure buy-in. What I would love to let you know about is that I actually run a Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence training program. And what we have learned so far today about wellbeing budget and buy-in is one tiny piece of the entire training program. So the next training program that we run is actually kicking off on the 25th of Feb. It's very, very soon. And it covers 6 modules. So it covers things like physical health and well-being, It covers mental health and well-being and psychosocial safety. It covers workplace wants and needs, things like productivity, looking at pain points like burnout, low retention. What can we do about those sorts of things? It gives you a chance to actually dive in and create a tiny pilot assignment. So, what you do once you've learnt all of your modules and you've come along to our weekly workshops, you jump into small discussion groups. You get to meet other wellbeing champions from other companies. People raved about the breakout rooms. They loved having these conversations, getting ideas and motivation from each other in other workplaces. And then you go and you run a little pilot test in your own workplace. That can be either creating a small event. You might want to do that just within your team. You might want to do it for the whole organization, or creating a wellbeing resource. So it might be a one-page document, it might be a special day, it might be a video, it can be absolutely anything. But it's really important we do the assignment in the training program, because what it does is it gives you a chance to implement. So you can kind of dive in and you can practice in a really safe space with us here within the program. And you can come back in week 6 and go, this is what happened. And then you've got 6 months of group coaching as you start to implement and practice some of this stuff, to come back to group coaching and say, right, this is the next thing I want to try and do. Or I've just attempted this thing. I want to talk about different ways I can improve it, or come and share your beautiful success stories. So the Wellbeing Champions from last year, we ran 2 cohorts, and their confidence levels that started in the low 50s in terms of how to create well-being at work, after the 6 modules and the 6 workshops, raised all the way up to 92%. So they left feeling super, super confident. This year, I am donating $5 directly to Oz Harvest. They are nourishing our country, and $5 goes a really long way. It actually provides 10 meals to people who need it most. So that invitation is there for you. I'd love you to come and join me starting on the 25th of Feb. Now, we sort of started at the end. We sort of started with our data and our wellbeing program and our business case to present. But I'm going to go backwards now, because you actually need to be able to create all of that customized stuff to present, right? So I just want to be really clear with you on what the steps are on how to create your wellbeing program at work, so that you can get to the point where you can pitch. So remember, we don't want to ask for money first and get nothing. We want to go ahead and develop as much as we can and then present the really strong business case. So these are the 3 steps: assess, customize, and engage. Let's start with number 1. Data-driven wellbeing programs is what we want to create. The way I would recommend doing this is starting with a wellbeing audit to go and collect your data. Lots of people say to me, we already have data, we already do a survey, we have an employee engagement survey. And I go, great. Show me the wellbeing metrics that come from your employee engagement survey. And there's usually one question, maybe 2, maybe 3, and they're usually something like, do you feel like your organization cares for you? Or do you feel that you could go to your manager and talk about well-being? Or it might be, do you feel like our company supports your well-being? And so it doesn't really give you any data. It kind of gives you a sense of, it's sort of a pulse check of, how do you feel about well-being? Yes or no? Do we do it or not do it? It doesn't really give you data to actually build with. So what we put in our wellbeing audit is wellbeing indicators across mental health and physical health. So we collect both risks and protective factors. And we also ask about workplace benefits, wants, and needs. So all of your workplace benefits, we would just pop into the audit, and we ask really open questions. Tell us what you want in your workplace. You'd be amazed at the responses that I receive. Sometimes I get up to 8 pages of ideas and suggestions of what people want, and it's gold, right? So I send all of that over to you to have a really good read of. And you'll get a communication plan with the audit on how to distribute the survey, how to collect the data. We do it all in the back end, so there's no work from you. You literally just send out this survey. Then you get a wellbeing report, and in your report, you get all the raw data and the insights, and you get the Australian guideline benchmarks, and you get health risk identification. So your metrics will be color coded. Red will be at risk, green will be above the Australian guidelines. So it's really easy to see where your risks are. And then you get a wellbeing strategic plan, which essentially is an action plan draft. It is your pitch that you can pop into your business case, and you can say, here is our plan. You want to make sure, of course, it's data driven and it's customized, and you build your business case with that. So that's kind of the starting point of getting to the program. Here's a sample of what the wellbeing report can look like. So in in your wellbeing report, there's 3 sections. So you get mental health, you get overall health, you get physical health. You also get a completely other section on workplace wants and needs. So this is just the wellbeing metrics specifically for your employees. And you can see under mental health, it's not just a rating out of 10, but we kind of dive into what are the causes? Do you have someone to talk to? How have you been feeling in the last 2 weeks? So you can get a really good idea of not just whether mental health is at risk, but what the causes are, and we start to build that into the action. Under overall, you can have a look at smoking and vaping, you can look at sleep rates, you can look at financial well-being, and that number, as you would anticipate, is on its way downhill. And the physical health ones will be about nutrition, they'll be about exercise, they'll be about particularly healthy eating and drinking. So we look at alcohol, we look at soft drinks, energy drinks, water, all those types of things. So this is just a sample, this is an example of what you would get in your report. Then what you do is you take that data and you go and you customize your wellbeing program. So this is how you do that. I always recommend companies start with the health dates calendar, and I will send you all of this so you've got a copy of it. But don't fall into the trap of looking at the calendar and going, oh, that looks interesting, let's do that. I have that conversation all the time. Often HR directors will ring me and say, we want to go ahead and we want to do a series of events or a wellbeing program, and we would like to do it on Mindful in May. I go, great. Why did you decide to do it Mindful in May? Oh, I was just sitting here with my colleague in HR and we had a chat and we thought that would be a good idea. So don't ever assume what you think your employees need. Always go back to the data and check. So when you're at this point, pick 2 or 3 dates that align with the risks that you absolutely want to minimize. So that might be, for example, if mental health came up as high risk, you might want to focus on October for Mental Health Month and really do a big campaign for that whole 4-week period. If it was sleep, you might want to do a completely different day. If it was checking in with each other, if it was nutrition, there's a no diet day coming up. So find the things that really align to your data. And then you want to go and find resources from all of your providers. So this is our wellbeing menu for 2025. These are the types of topics that we can deliver on, and I'll show you delivery models next. But when you're just thinking about content, these are actually the topics that we deliver. Other places you can go to and should go to find resources would be your EAP provider. That would be the first place I would start. Often EAP contracts include a certain number of sessions or a certain amount of people that can come through the program, but they often include things like training or wellbeing resources as well. And you may already be paying for that in your contract. So go and have a look there and see if you can bring in some of that free stuff. Also have a look at your organisation's insurer. They may have some free resources you can either get through the rebate or they might have as part of their offering as well. If you came to us and said, I want to do these particular topics, I would say, why? Let's have a look at your data. Let's make it very customized and very specific for what your people need. So it's not a kind of off the shelf, we do the same sleep talk for every company. Some companies have a 24/7 day night rotating shift. They will need different tools for adapting to different shifts, day shift, night shift, how to eat, how to sleep in that, compared to someone who's working in an office. Again, very different to someone who's doing physical labor all day. So we still tailor the content even once you've picked your topics. Now, this is how we deliver. So what you want to do at this point, once you've picked your topics, is you want to make sure you have got hyper personalized delivery. So what I mean by that is pick a type of delivery that is really personalized to the roles within your workplace. So if all your people are in one office, one location, super easy, on-site events are the way to go. We know face-to-face is lovely, get everyone together, fantastic for morale and energy in the room. If everyone is spread out across Australia or they're all on different time zones, do an online event, do it live and do it interactive. So the way we've done today, we've done live polls, we've done the chat box, we're going to do Q&A. Even though we are online, I still want people to be able to interact and feel part of it. We also do e-learning modules. Now, what I recommend we do with e-learning modules is send out information before or after an event. So either send it out as pre-learn or send it out afterwards as a supplement. So if you're just going to do the online version, either a live online event or an e-learning module, supplement with a short video bite, and I mean tiny, like maximum of 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, and a one-page resource, because just doing one digital thing I have found is not enough. It doesn't give you the same engagement rates. So always supplement with a short video or a one-pager resource so that you can continue to repeat the message and really start to get some behavioral change and some really positive outcomes. Conference keynotes work beautifully if you have an opportunity for all employees to come together. And that might only be once a year or twice a year. But if you can do that, talking about well-being as part of that is fantastic. Now, remember, this whole point is to make sure it's a data-driven wellbeing program. So don't just stop with the first audit. Make sure you get feedback data as well. So do your live polls, collect your word clouds, do program evaluation. So every single event, webinar, module, keynote, anything that you deliver, make sure you are getting ratings from your attendees and your participants. Evaluating the program. What did you think? And then ask for an expression of interest in future topics. So what would you like to learn about wellbeing in the future? And if you keep collecting that data every time you do an event, your program is going to be dynamic. And that is really powerful because it gives you the chance to make data-driven adjustments and modify your program all the way through the year. So you're keeping it current, you're keeping it flexible and agile. Talk about data-driven, that is data-driven and dynamic. So that's a fantastic way to keep your program alive. That is kind of the creation of the program itself. A lot of people I find stop at that point. They might collect the data, they might create the program, they might launch it in an email, and then they leave it. What I find can happen if you stop there is you still may not get high employee engagement. Anyone on the call ever set up an event at work and nobody ever turns up? I've heard that happen before. It's an awful feeling when you've put in so much effort to create something. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And then you do a big event and then maybe 2 people turn up, or I've had some where no people have turned up. Here is the reason why. You've got to have an approach to really increase employee engagement. There are two options. There is top down and there is ground up. Top down will work really well if you are super lucky and you already have leaders who are bought in. If you know you've got leaders who are saying well-being is high priority, I really want to focus on that, go with a top-down approach. And if that's your company, go and follow those steps in the 3 boxes at the bottom. Make sure they are role modeling, make sure they are taking photos and videos, and make sure they are sharing those stories every time they get up at a meeting, because that is very motivational. Make sure they are doing informal endorsement and giving permission and encouraging leave and breaks. In other words, encouraging people to look after themselves. And then they will also want to do formal endorsements. So whether it's a flexibility policy, whether it's types of leave or workplace benefits, whether it's funding the wellbeing program. So if you've got top down buy-in, make sure you follow those 3 steps to secure that. If you haven't, which unfortunately is a more common scenario that I find, I highly recommend a ground up approach. This is the wellbeing champions that I have spoken about already. So what you want your wellbeing champions to do is role model wellbeing, and you also want them to engage as many employees as possible. A little word of warning: do not ask wellbeing champions who might just put their hand up and volunteer and say, yep, happy to be a wellbeing champion. Do not ask them to write a strategy from scratch, to write the whole program, to run the whole program. What I see happen when you do that, it's a bit of a kind of free for all. You guys can have the wellbeing program. Sometimes decisions just don't get made. There's kind of too many people involved in the creation stage, and they might do 5 or 6 meetings, nothing ever gets implemented, and then people kind of lose interest. Or you have so much going on, they're trying to build a program, they're trying to deliver the program, they're trying to get feedback, they're trying to get people involved. It's actually too much work as a volunteer role on top of their other job, and they might step out. So the only thing you want your wellbeing champions to do is role model and advocate. So you're actually going to give them the program that you've already delivered, that you've already created, and go, here's our wellbeing program for 2025. What I would love you to do is do a brainstorming session, work out how you can best motivate your peers, advocate and promote the program right throughout the year. That is absolutely the best way to bring wellbeing champions into your program and to really improve engagement of employees. This training program that I shared with you this morning, to see if, yes, this training program is for those wellbeing champions in your workplace that put their hand up and they say, yes, I would like to help with wellbeing, but I don't actually have any qualifications. I don't have any experience. I'd like to learn a bit more about it. Or that might be you if you are the wellbeing lead or the wellbeing champion in your workplace. And maybe this is the first time you've kind of stepped into this and you're really wanting to upskill and to get more confidence. So last year I ran 2 cohorts in this program. I just wanted to show you a couple of quotes from some of our students from last year. Great way to learn about workplace wellbeing and gather ideas from other workplaces. So they absolutely loved these breakout rooms and small discussion groups, right? Thank you for the opportunity to learn and grow my skills and confidence. These skills are not just for work, but also for my personal life. I love that. Good for role modeling at work. It was easy to follow and loads of information, but very simplified. Interactions with other workplaces and sharing knowledge was good. So what I've actually done this year, I've increased the amount of knowledge sharing and interaction so that you get to meet everybody else in the group. What I liked most was having open conversations and discussions, implementing and rolling out the wellbeing program. Pretty satisfying, right? To be able to learn new information and implement within the one program. So I wanted to show you on the second last slide. I'm going to open for Q&A in 1 minute. I just want to invite you to enroll if you want to increase your confidence as a wellbeing champion. Next cohort starts on the 25th of Feb. So it's very, very soon. $5 from your enrollment goes straight to Oz Harvest. You can keep it within your professional development budget. So 99% of students that come through have it funded by their employer. I've got one or two people that actually came through and paid for it individually, and you can claim it on your tax if you want to do that. But most companies are very happy to support their employees to come and learn more about corporate wellbeing and how to improve wellbeing at work, and really happy to invest the enrollment fee and then the time for you to come along once a week to come and join our program. So I'd love you to join. If you want some more information, just scan the code on the screen and I'll send you an email with all the info in it. You will need to enroll very soon, next week, because it is starting on the 25th of Feb. I'm going to open for Q&A now. This is my final slide for the session. So if you want to take yourself off mute and put your camera on, you can. If you want to use the chat box, I will just open that now. I'm very happy to take your questions. If you don't have any questions, I want to thank you for coming to today's session on wellbeing budget and buy-in. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope you took some tools away that you can help to get a budget or increase your budget for 2025. I've got 3 events coming up in the next weeks or months. The first one is Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence. Training program starts on the 25th. The second one is Safe Conversations for Psych Safety. This is a small 1-hour event just like this. It's on the 19th of March. It's run by Bill Carson and myself. We're going to do a deep dive into bullying and burnout. So it's how to apply safe conversation skills for psychological safety at work, specifically when you are talking about burnout or about bullying. So I'd love you to come and join me for that. If you are in Melbourne, the next Workplace Health and Safety show, we did the Sydney one last year. Next one's coming up in Melbourne on the 21st of May, and I will be speaking on your wellbeing and safety blueprint. So how to bring your wellbeing program into your safety obligations and how it fits within your entire organization. So I'd love you to join me. It's at the Melbourne Convention Centre. If you're in Melbourne, come along to that one. Otherwise, if you're online, one of the other 2 might be of use to you. That's a wrap for today. I'm just going to open for 1 more minute. If there's any questions, pop them into the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody.